Okay, so just stand by here right now, either.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. At this time, if everyone could please take their seats. Everyone, please come in and take your seats. All right, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I am Reverend Cozy Bailey. I am the president of the Prince William Branch NAACP. Now I'm also thank you for that. I'm also the state president, the Virginia State Conference NAACP. And on behalf of this great coalition of organizations who believe that democracy takes work, I welcome you all this evening. I want to thank the Prince William Chamber of Commerce, Bob Sweeney in his absence, but we have the President Marty Noe with us who spoke to you outside. Thank you for your contributions to make this a success. And I want to thank all of the coalition members. I'm not going to try to name them all. EJ can do that, but there's a great coalition, again, of people who are very focused, again, in this case, on voter education. I want to thank EJ Scott, who is the political action chair for the Prince William NAACP, and her partner, Ray Woodrick, her partner in putting this together, Ray Woodrick, and the entire workforce who put this all together. So thank you all very, very much for that. I want to thank Larry Miller from Channel 9, who has come to be our host and moderator for this great event. Yeah. It's okay to show appreciation, okay? I want to thank the two party chairs here in Prince William who have supported the candidates who are running for the Republican Party, Jacob Alderman, and from the Democratic Party, Sam Chisholm Jr. And of course, we thank Manassas schools and especially Metz Middle School for allowing us to come in here to do this forum this evening. I've been asked to recognize the elected officials at forums like this. Is always appropriate to do that. And so first I want to recognize Senator Danica Roem, State Senator Danica Roem from the 30th Senate District. There is, in fact, another state senator here, but he's going to be up on the stage, so I'll let him introduce himself to you later. I want to recognize three members of the Manassas City Council who are here with us tonight. Ralph Smith, Tom Lucina, and Mark Wolf. I want to recognize the former chair at large for the Prince William County Board of Supervisors, the Honorable Miss Ann Wheeler. And Marty Noe is wearing several hats tonight like he always does. The former representative from the Coles Magisterial District, Marty Noe. We also have with us two members from the Prince William County School Board, Mr. Richard Jesse and Mr. Tracy Blake. Great, I think I got through that successfully. Nobody's going to be mad at me, right? Good. I want to thank the candidates for coming out tonight as well. You know, each candidate is allowed to have their own campaign strategy. And one of those strategies is which forum or debate to do, but we're so thankful for the three who have shown up tonight. Thank you all very much. As we all know, democracy, as I said before, requires participation. And as you are out here tonight, as these candidates present themselves to you, this is how democracy works. It is a participation form of government. This country is a democratic republic, again, based, though, on the precepts of democracy. And so this is what we do. For the education of all of you to be able to make an informed decision, these candidates are presenting themselves to you to let you know what they think is best for either Congressional District 7 or Congressional District 10. And they will be asking you for their vote when they're done. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. And I'm going to ask, EJ is going to come up next after me, and she's going to give the rules, but we know that as we practice democracy, that we become very passionate. I'm just going to ask you to modify how you express your passion. Don't boo, don't cheer, go vote. I have one more thing that I need to do. Let me open it up before I bring EJ up here. And this is along those lines of becoming passionate, and sometimes passion can become destructive as opposed to informative. I'm going to read you a short letter that is signed by both of the party chairs, Chair Samuel Chisholm Jr. from the Prince William County Democratic Committee. Sam, where are you? And Chair Jacob Alderman from the Prince William County Republican Committee. Thank you. And listen to this carefully as well. To the constituents of Prince William County, elections are a time for passionate debate and differing opinions. But in our exuberance, let's remember to keep our interaction respectful. Vandalizing campaign signs, destroying personal property, and verbally attacking or threatening others who are on the other side of the aisle only undermines the democratic process. It disrespects our fellow citizens and creates tensions that can have unintended consequences. Let's show our commitment to civility, to the democratic process, and to the freedom of choice by engaging in constructive dialogue and respecting everyone's right to express their views. Together, we can foster a healthier political environment and ensure a safe space for all Prince William County residents, regardless of their political beliefs. With that said, we join as the chairs of both our respective parties to ask everyone to abide by this request as we move into the most consequential period of the campaign season. Again, signed by both party chairs. Let's have fun tonight. And now I present to you Ms. E.J. Scott.
Thank you, Chair Bailey. Appreciate that. And I am so happy to see so many of you here today. So ladies, gentlemen, candidates, esteemed moderator, sponsors, and members of our community. We are 49 days out until November 5th. Just to give you, I always get to do the bad things, I guess because I speak softly. No food is allowed in the auditorium. Also, no candidate signs. Today is National Voter Registration Day. Early voting starts on September 20th, and that is National Black Voter Registration Day. And it's also the day that we will have another meet and greet for the 8th and the 11th congressional districts at the Fairfax County Government Center. also starting at 6:30. And then we will also have later this year Souls to the Polls Sundays, 13th of October and the 20th of October. I am E.J. Scott. I'm the chair of the Political Action Committee for the Prince William NAACP, and I am the first vice president of the NAACP. We formed this coalition some years ago, and it has continually grown with organizations that are dedicated to service. Our coalition it's an alliance of nonpartisan organizations who believe in civic engagement and having an informed, enthusiastic, and engaged electorate. Our goal is to foster meaningful and constructive discussion on the issues that matters most to our communities. A heartfelt thanks again to the Prince William Chamber of Commerce and the wonderful people who have worked in order to have this happen. I will name our members, not the names, but the names of the organizations. Can I get that up on here? I've got the names of the organizations that are members of our coalition. As I said, it has grown substantially. So, of course, NAACP, Delta Sigma Theta, Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy, and the members, if you're here that were on our group, feel free to stand or wave or something to let people know who you are. The Links Incorporated, the Old Dominion chapter, Omega Psi Phi, Lambda Lambda chapter, League of Women Voters, Prince William and Fauquier area, Unity in the Community, Black Women on Deck, National Council for Negro Women, 100 Black Women, Gainesville, Manassas Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Northern Virginia Democracy Center in association with the Center for Common Ground. And here also we have our DP Butterscotch production. It is a not-for-profit immersion program that empowers students. Can I have a round of applause for them helping us? That's our audiovisual group. Now, before I begin, I just want to remind everyone to please turn down or off your cell phones. We have gathered to engage in meaningful dialogue, again, to gain a deeper understanding of the individuals vying for positions of leadership. This event serves as a testament to the vibrancy of our democracy and the value we place on informed decision making. We reached out with invitations to every Democrat and every Republican candidate that qualified for the November ballot. We sent at least 3 emails, and we even made calls in attempting to ensure that you were able to hear from all of our candidates. We even called the Democratic and the Republican chairs, asking them to support us in ensuring that all candidates are here. Thank you to all of the candidates who responded positively to our invitation. The plan is, as we continue, to have the 7th Congressional District and the 10th Congressional District for the congressional candidates that are here today. We have put the Republicans at one table and the Democrats at another table, so that we can make it easier for you to understand who we are. So, okay. All right. Now, before we could proceed with the form, I just want to outline some essential rules of behavior to ensure that this event is conducted in a respectful and constructive manner. I thank the chairs for writing that letter. So you took a lot of my points that I was going to make, but just never hurts to reiterate. Because we realize that many of you in the audience may support one candidate over the other. However, this is a forum for discussion led by a moderator. The foundation of any productive discussion is respect. We may have diverse opinions and perspectives, but it is imperative that we treat all candidates and fellow attendees with courtesy and value. Personal attacks, insults, or derogatory language will not be tolerated. Again, personal attacks will not be allowed. We want to know what you think as a candidate. What is your position on the issues that we're going to ask about? This is a hybrid event. You can also see it at the Prince William Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel and on the Prince William NAACP Facebook page. Okay. Our questions that the moderator will be asking, they come from members of our Coalition for Action. They come from the voters and the forum registrants. Each candidate will have a specific time to allot to their responses. Please adhere to the times. Limit to ensure fairness and an orderly discussion. We have our timers, if you all would like to come up. Our candidates, if you all would like to come up. That's you too, Hans. I'm sorry, that's Derek right here. Thank you all. Our timers, please raise your hand. The timers are right there. Please hold up your card. So we want to know, make sure that you can see the timers. Are they clear for everyone? Everyone on the stage, all the candidates can see the timers? Okay, all right. Please pay attention, particularly to the one that says 30 seconds, and then you'll get a 15-second, and then a stop. So please adhere. As you see, we have many cameras. Let's not do that. Okay. We have many cameras here. This is streaming live, and there will be a wonderful, wonderful video that you all can download once this is over. In a few minutes, we're going to have the moderator come up. He will be introduced by a second person. Okay, let's see here. The moderator has the authority to intervene if any of the rules are violated and to maintain decorum. The order of the speakers has been determined by a coin toss, and we will have Mr. Anderson will go first, then Mr. Subramanian, and then Mr. Venman on our opening statements. And then the reverse will be the change for the closing statements. I will now introduce to you the person who will introduce the moderator. He is Curtis Porter, which really needs no introduction in this group. He is a native of Prince William County, Virginia, and has over 200 years of family history in this county. He is a past president of the Prince William NAACP. He currently serves as the chairman of the Prince William Human Rights Commission. For the past 30 years, he's held that position. He is also on his 7th term as the president of the Virginia Association of Human Rights Commissions, a statewide organization that offers city and county human rights committees a chance to work together. Can I get Mr. Porter? Would you please come out?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, EJ. Good evening, everyone. I have the honor of, as she indicated, I am chairman of the Prince William County Human Rights Commission, but the important thing tonight is I am a member of the coalition and the Omicron Zeta Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and I'm here in that capacity. I do have the honor of introducing the moderator for this evening, Mr. Larry Miller. Larry grew up in Baltimore County. He works for WUSA 9, and he serves as an anchor there. He joined the WUSA 9 team in February of 2015 as a traffic anchor. And after serving in multiple positions, he became the Get Up DC anchor in October of 2022. He currently serves as a dayside anchor and the Saturday evening anchor, as well as turning investigative and consumer reports. He came to WUSA 9 from WBAM TV in Birmingham, Alabama, where he worked as a reporter and a fill-in anchor. In Alabama, he learned the art of storm chasing, challenged elected officials on the mismanagement of taxpayer dollars, and covered some of the city's most high-profile crimes. He earned his Edward R. Murrow and Associated Press Awards for the hard news reporting that he conducted. He holds a Master of Arts in Journalism and Mass Communication from Point Park University, and a Bachelor of Sociology from the University of Pittsburgh. Our moderator tonight, Mr. Larry Miller.
Quite the introduction there. Thank you, sir. All right. You guys ready? Yeah. We're looking forward to a great conversation today, and we appreciate you all being here, and we want to thank the candidates as well. We are looking forward to getting some answers to some important questions that the voters will have. We will start with our 7th Congressional District candidate, Mr. Anderson. We will start with you. I understand that you won the coin toss.
I did.
All right, we'll start with you, sir, with your opening statement.
Great, thank you. Hey, thank you all for having me and the opportunity to speak to the wonderful people in Prince William County. My name is Derek Anderson. I'm running to represent the 7th Congressional District. I grew up in Spotsylvania County. My mom, who's sitting right up front videotaping, like she always is, she owned a few small businesses in Spotsylvania County. That's where I started my career. I started there mopping floors, washing dishes, eventually got promoted to cook. So if you ever went to the Whistle Stop, I was the guy in the back flipping burgers. I ended up graduating from Cortland High School in Spotsylvania before going to Virginia Tech on an ROTC scholarship. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college before joining the Army. I started off as an infantry officer, went to Ranger School, and then went to Iraq for 15 months as part of the surge. After that, I went to Arlington National Cemetery, where I did a little over 150 funerals in Arlington National Cemetery. Truly an honor to be able to do those. I ended up joining and getting picked up for the Special Forces, where I became a Green Beret. I did 5 deployments with them, including Afghanistan, Bahrain, Lebanon, Israel, and Jordan. I ended up getting out of the Army. I went to law school and clerked for 2 federal judges. What got me into this race, what got me up off the couch, was seeing what had happened in Afghanistan. I lost 5 of my guys in Afghanistan, so I was pretty disheartened and disgusted to see how the current administration handled the withdrawal in Afghanistan. Especially disheartening for me was when I received that phone call from one of my Gold Star moms who said, "Derek, after 20 years of war, my son being killed, and this is what we have to prove for it." So again, folks, I'm a common sense kind of guy. I want the basic needs of the people in the 7th District to be taken care of. I want to make sure that our economy is back on track so that it's more affordable for people to live. I want to make sure that our communities are safe by making sure that our border is secure. And I want to make sure we take care of our veterans. So again, folks, I am very happy to be here tonight. I thank you all so much for having me, and it would be an honor to earn your support and represent the district that raised me. Thank you so much.
Mr. Anderson, thank you so much. Up next, Mr. Vindman.
Thank you. My name is Eugene Vindman. I'm a husband, a father, an Army veteran of the Iraq War. I live in Prince William County. I'm raising 2 kids in Prince William County schools. For decades, the Army told me where to live, and when I retired, I decided to make Prince William County my home. I came from humble beginnings. My family emigrated from the Soviet Union. We're refugees from a communist, bigoted dictatorship, and we came here with less than $800 in our pocket. We had each other and the American dream. When I was old enough, out of a profound sense of gratitude, I decided to join the Army, and I made a 25 career out of it. I had the privilege of leading troops as an infantry officer in the 82nd. When we were jumping out of airplanes, it didn't matter if you were a Republican or Democrat, black, white, or whatever part of the country. We had a mission, and that's the mindset I bring to all my tasks. I had the privilege also of being a prosecutor. I went to law school, I put myself through law school, and prosecuted in the busiest court-martial jurisdiction in the world. I defended my community, I made sure victims received the justice they deserved, and those that violated the law were held accountable. I later became an advisor in the White House, and I was tested in the most extreme way you could imagine a military officer being tested. I had to stand up to my commander-in-chief. I did that. That cost me my career. Now, I'm fighting for the families of Virginia's 7th Congressional District. I'm a sober, experienced expert. That's the skill set that I bring to this job, that I plan to bring to this job. That's what the voters of the 7th Congressional District deserve. There are lots of things we need to work on, that we need to fix: infrastructure, safe, high-quality public schools, and frankly, most importantly, reproductive health care, abortion. And that's what I will work on. Thank you so much.
Mr. Vindman. Mr. Vindman, thank you so much. With that, we will go to Mr. Suhas Subramaniam, the Democratic candidate for the 10th Congressional District.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to all the organizers of this forum. I'm Suhas Subramaniam. I'm a state senator in the 32nd State Senate District in Virginia, and I'm running to represent the 10th Congressional District of Virginia. I'm running because I want to make sure that we can deliver real results and take on the toughest fights in Congress right now. I've got 2 girls. They're 4 and 2. They made me wear a pink shirt tonight. They made sure of that. But I care about their future. I care about what kind of Commonwealth, what kind of country we're going to leave them, and not just in the next 2 years, but in the next 20, 30 years. And 30, 40 years ago, when my parents immigrated here through Dulles Airport, they saw America as a place where your dreams can come true. My mom wanted to be a doctor. She was told back in India that it wasn't a place for a woman to do that by some of her friends and family. So she decided to come here and pursue that dream, and she did. And growing up, she told me the importance of serving, and the importance of hard work, and the importance of education. And I took those messages seriously. I went to school, I went to college, and she also told me not to get involved in politics. So I stayed away from politics until I got to college and saw, I was in New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina hit the city. And so during the rebuild, I got involved and got engaged. And then I realized that sometimes if you don't find politics, politics will find you. That's what happened in that case. There were actually a lot of corrupt politicians down in Louisiana at the time. And I decided, I had two choices, either go to the FBI and put them in jail or go to work for a congressional campaign. And that's what I did. I did the latter, and I ended up working to elect better people instead. And since then, I've served in the Obama White House as a technology advisor, taking on some of the toughest fights in the technology world. And I've served locally as a volunteer firefighter, EMT, making sure I was there for people in their greatest time of need. And so I look at this election, I look at this moment as a time where we have a lot of tough fights ahead of us. But as a state senator, a state delegate, and throughout my career, I've always taken on those tough fights. I've never shied away from them. I look forward to serving you and taking on those tough fights and getting real results for you in Congress. Thank you.
Mr. Subramaniam, thank you so much. We'll start with our first question. Why do you believe you're the most qualified candidate for the job? Mr. Vindman, we'll begin with you.
Sure. So I sort of described that in my opening statement. I'm a local dad. I'm raising two kids here. Frankly, I think having that mindset of somebody that's raising a family in the district is critically important. I understand high prices, whether at the pump or in the grocery store. I understand the high price of housing, and I understand the high price of childcare. These are things that my family has had to deal with. And like I said, I bring decades of experience in national security, sober expertise and experience, including advising at the most senior levels in the White House. Combining those two experiences as a local husband and father, understanding the struggles of average, everyday families, makes me a qualified candidate. And look, I spent 25 years in the Army defending Americans' rights and freedoms, and frankly, they're under attack. In the context of abortion, 2 years ago, we had a constitutional right to abortion, and that right was eliminated. And I have a daughter that's 14 years old. I have nieces around the same age. I want to make sure that they have the same rights that women have enjoyed for decades. Those rights are under threat, and I find that totally unacceptable. So the stakes in this election couldn't be higher. We have to be focused. We have to understand what we're up against. The manifesto for a second Trump administration, 883 pages of material of exactly how they plan to govern, and those are the stakes involved. So, thank you.
Mr. Anderson, we'll have you go next.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I have to say about myself is, if you want, I don't know if my mic is turned on, but I got a big voice, so I can make everyone in the back hear me, so how about that? Look, if you want someone to go and fight for you in Washington, D.C., you need somebody that is one of you. My family, my family's been here my entire life. I grew up in my mom's restaurants. I know what our local businesses are dealing with right now. I know what our local businesses and our local families are having to do or deal with right now. We see the economy right now, folks, and it's an absolute disaster. The economy right now is costing the average person, the average family in the Commonwealth of Virginia at $1,100 more a month. That's just to live, folks. That's not to go on a fancy dinner. That's not to go on a vacation. That's just to live. We look at the border and how out of control it is. I just did a tour down to the border a few days ago. I can tell you what you're seeing on the news is not even close to what's actually happening down at the border. We have fentanyl, we have public health crises coming from it, we have criminal activity coming from it, and it has to stop right now. Look, folks, I spent over a decade in the Army as a Green Beret. I fought for my country multiple times, over and over again, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm definitely ready to fight for my district, my home district, where guess what? My mom, my cousins, my friends, the Board of Supervisors, chairman of the Board of Supervisors in Spotsylvania County, we went to middle school together, for God's sake. I think it's time for accountability. It's time for having somebody that's from the district, that knows the district in and out, because that's what it's going to take to get our country back on track. And again, my opponent will continue to say he wants to fix the economy and fix these things, but him and his party have had the opportunity over the last 4 years to fix these things, and this is where we're at right now. So again, folks, you want someone to represent you, someone that's going to represent you fully in Congress, that's going to be a leader in Congress. You need someone that is one of you.
Mr. Anderson, thank you so much. Before we get to Mr. Subramaniam, we do want to remind everyone of the rules again, that we're asking people to hold your applause until the end out of respect for all of the candidates, okay? But we appreciate the enthusiasm. We thank you for being here, all right? Mr. Subramaniam, we'll have you continue on, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one thing to talk the talk. It's another thing to walk the walk. I have been a state legislator for the past about 4.5 years. And before that, I worked in the White House as a technology advisor. And Mr. Vindman knows that when there were attacks on our country, when there were really big issues going on in our country, we were in the Situation Room trying to handle those issues. We were advising the President of the United States on some of the most pressing issues in our community. Someone who's actually done those things and been through those experiences is someone who is ready to lead and ready to be in Congress for the people of this community. And Mr. Vindman knows that. And the other thing is, as a state legislator, one of the reasons I wanted to do this in the first place is because a lot of the issues I get are actually federal issues, and it just shows how broken some of our systems are. Almost 80% of the issues I get to my office, inquiries, are immigration issues where I can't even help the person. I send them over to Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton, who does a great job, but this is a chance for me to actually be able to directly help those folks, call the State Department, USCIS for them. And I know that as a state legislator, before it was cool, I was trying to address rising costs. When people talked to me about the toll road and said that the tolls were way too high in our county, I went out and I actually passed the very first bill that they had ever opposed. And a couple of weeks ago, they tried to increase tolls by 40%, and we actually got that rejected because of my bill. And when Dominion Energy, the utility monopoly in our state, actually tried to overcharge customers, I passed the very first bill that they opposed. It was the first time that they'd lost the bill in the General Assembly, and because of that, people got checks in the mail and more than $300 million in refunds across the state because of that. Prescription drug pricing, cost of housing. I've taken on rising costs and I've won because those were tough fights, and there were times where people told me it couldn't be done, but I always did it because I knew that's what my constituents wanted. The tens of thousands of doors I've knocked and the people that I've talked to needed it, and so I was there for them. I'm going to continue to be there for them in Congress.
All right, Mr. Subramaniam, thank you so much. Mr. Anderson, we'll start with you with this next question. Thousands of Virginia residents work as federal employees or government contractors. Yet every year when it's time to set our national budget, it seems to be a threat of a shutdown. We are actually approaching one coming up shortly. What will you do to ensure that government employees are not affected by partisan debates?
Yeah, first and foremost, I appreciate your comments about my opponent, Mr. Suhas, but it's taken you getting on stage as a wingman for my opponent to actually get him on stage with me. Look, right now, our economy is absolutely out of control. If we talk about what people are dealing with in our district right now, government employees can't afford to have a government shutdown. I've been very open with that, and I've been very open that I'll never support legislation that would harm jobs for people in our district. But if we look at where we're at right now as an economy, it's absolutely horrendous, folks. And I mention this only because we need to make sure we start planning beforehand. What we oftentimes see, especially when I talk about the budget, is that people sit and wait. I did just speak with some of the leadership over in the House, and they've said that they've got a plan that they're putting forth over in the Senate. Unfortunately, the Senate right now just continues to sit on the budget, whatever it comes over. This is the federal U.S. Senate, sits on it. So we need to make sure that not only we get a budget that's good, but we need to make sure we have a balanced budget. Time and time again, we've gotten into a fact that we're $35 trillion in debt, and everyone wants to continue to spend. We got to stop the spending. We got to stop the bleeding. And when we look at our federal government employees and we talk about, there's been talks, people have talked about shutdowns. This is not a time when individuals can afford to have a government shutdown. When we talk about the fact that it's costing $1,100 more a month just to live. We talk about the fact that people here, over in our district, in the 7th Congressional District and here in the Commonwealth, people are a quarter of the people in Virginia are delinquent on their credit cards. Why? Because they're paying for gas and groceries. No longer it's big expenses on your credit card, it's gas and groceries. And so look, we need to make sure we have common sense solutions to these problems, make sure that we continue to work earlier to get a budget passed so it's not at the very end of the year and we're sitting on it December 24th and then everyone's trying to figure out a continuing resolution.
So let me focus first on facts and not scare tactics and make wild claims and propose some solutions. First of all, this is a byline from yesterday's Washington Post. It says, House Republicans have been in power for nearly 2 years, and they're still unable to solve fiscal problems within their ranks because the MAGA wing of the party has taken over, which is squarely where my opponent sits. Look, this is where we're at. In front of me is Project 2025. We're talking about budgets, federal budgets being passed in order to fund federal employees, but national security. National security suffers when we can't pass a budget. So there's a section in here, and you gotta, it's 883 pages, but there's a section here called Schedule F, which is this radical idea of eliminating the nonpartisan civil service and making those employees beholden to swear an oath of fealty to the president. And it could be a Republican, it could be a Democrat, and frankly, it's unacceptable. It weakens us in national security because what it does is you're replacing experts with political hacks. I have some knowledge of that because I worked in the previous administration in the National Security Council. I've seen what that does to national security. And these are experts that have decades of experience in perceiving threats and understanding where those threats come from. It's fundamentally unfair, and it would absolutely devastate the economy. Can you imagine tens of thousands of jobs being eliminated? 15% of the workforce in this area is federal employees. You eliminate those jobs, that's one way to make sure the costs go down by destroying the economy. That's unacceptable, and that is exactly where my opponent sits. Because he is beholden to that wing of the party, he is financed by them, he's owned lock, stock, and barrel by them, and guess what? There is no room for dissent in the MAGA party.
To be clear, the former president has says that he is not familiar with, hasn't supported Project 2025. He said that on numerous occasions.
Can I respond to that?
I'll come back to that. I will give you the opportunity to come back to that. Mr. Subramaniam, your response, sir.
Yeah, I'll first tackle that issue because he may not know what's in it or distance himself from it, but that's his platform. It very much mirrors his platform. And in fact, he had a plan to fire so many civil servants before he was elected out of office. And again, if you are going to go through and you're going to fire the federal civil servants in Northern Virginia, that's going to be tens of thousands of jobs. That's going to be a self-imposed recession for our community if we let Project 2025 and that agenda get through in Congress. And second of all, my dad always told me, actions speak louder than words. And the Republican leadership in Congress can say that they want to pass budgets, but the truth is they're catering to the far right wing of their caucus because that's what Mike Johnson, their leadership, needs in order to be in their positions. And so because of that, they're not passing budget. It's really hard for them to pass budgets. And they actually need Democrats in a lot of instances in order to pass budgets. And the other thing that I think really disappoints me is that why are we talking about cutting off federal civil servants at a time like this? This is more than ever, the continuity of government is so important. The threats to democracy are worse than ever. And so federal civil servants have done so much for our country to make the continuity of government stand. And so I was in the White House, that was when the transition from Obama to Trump happened, and I was able to pass on a lot of great bipartisan work. And so I think we need to continue to make sure we protect federal workers and that we pass budgets. One of the first things I want to do when I'm in Congress is make sure that we have rules in place so that shutdowns don't happen and our economy can continue to thrive in Northern Virginia.
Mr. Subramanian, thank you. I want to get back to the question regarding Project 2025. It is one of the questions that voters have been curious about as relates to policy and obviously the balance of power. Mr. Venma, we'll give you an opportunity to respond to that. Your position on Project 2025?
Yeah, so I guess the first point I'd make is that this is a 883-page tome written by 30 of his closest advisors in the previous administration. His name is mentioned 300 times. So this idea that he can distance himself and that this is not the roadmap for a second administration, I think is just laughable. So I think we have to make that the starting point. The second thing is that this tome addresses every sort of idea. There are aspects in here that talk about eliminating overtime pay. These are blue-collar workers that would be affected by that. There are aspects in here that would affect Social Security benefits, reductions in Social Security benefits, reductions in Medicare benefits. There are aspects in here that would affect every aspect of people's lives. But there's one in particular I think that we can spend a few moments on, and it's this idea about reproductive rights. And I mentioned this earlier. 2 years and change ago, we had a constitutional right that was removed. So now over 50% of the women in this country have a right, have less rights than they had a few years ago. My daughter, my nieces have less rights than they had 2 years ago. Yesterday, there was a story about 2 women in Georgia that died because they did not have the reproductive health care that they needed. That's what we're talking about here. When you have, there is no woman that wants an abortion in the 8th month. That is just a total lie. You have procedures like this because you have an ectopic pregnancy, and the procedure necessary, the medical treatment necessary, is abortion. So let's be 100% clear on this. This idea in Project 2025 to eliminate abortion rights, which my opponent actually said was the Supreme Court made the right decision finally, that's where the threats lie.
Mr. Anderson, we'll have you answer the first question, which is your position on Project 2025. Do you support the policies that are laid out in this sort of memorandum in this book? And then we'll also have you address the other issue that's on the floor regarding reproductive health care.
We're going to do it all in 2 minutes?
We'll do as much as we can. And we'll come back to the abortion question later on, too. So.
Look, first and foremost, folks, you want to talk about extreme. This is extreme. What he's talking about is absolutely insane. This is the kind of person that you'll get as the next congressional person here in the 7th Congressional District. Someone who sits around and reads an 800-page book and apparently stops talking to people in our district. Folks, I did not know what Project 2025 was until this individual kept talking about it over and over again. What I can tell you is that it's not my plan. I can tell you is that he continues to try to put words in my mouth and lie. He's lied time and time again on his commercials or what have you, hide over social media. I'm here talking to you. That's not my plan. Here's my plan. Let's make sure that we can get our economy back on track. I'll tell you a story. There's a little girl by the name of Ella. She was there last night. You probably heard her. She's 10 years old. She wrote a letter to me a few months back where it was telling me Happy Memorial Day, all of that, and then one line that really stood out to me. She said, "Derek, can you fix the government so my mom can buy snacks again?" That's what I'm hearing from people on the ground. The economy is absolutely devastating us right now, folks. Folks right now that make the average pay $100,000 to $200,000 a year right now cannot afford where they're at right now. They're living paycheck to paycheck. That means rent, that means groceries, that means clothes. Those are the things that I'm hearing from folks. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, because when you go to the gas pump, you don't get a special discount. Folks, we got to talk about the border and the problems that are intimately hitting us. Every state is now a border state, folks, and I'll get into the border a little bit more, but these are the things that I'm hearing on the ground from people: the economy, the border, veterans issues. My opponent will lie, as he just did over and over again. That is not my plan. My plan is to get our economy back on track and make our communities safe.
Mr. Anderson, thank you so much for your response. Mr. Supermariam?
Thank you. Yes, Project 2025. You may not have read it, but it's actually it's run by, it was written by a think tank called the Heritage Foundation, and it seems to be the underlying thread among people in the Republican Party running for Congress across the country. And so, giving you an example on abortion, Project 2025 calls for a full ban on abortion. And I see Republicans saying that oh, we need to go state by state, and let's let the states decide. Well, some of the states are deciding on full bans, and it's not just about abortion. They're coming after IVF, access to contraceptives. There was a woman who died in Georgia recently because her doctor was too afraid to treat her. There was a woman in Oklahoma who was told to bleed out in the parking lot. So in Project 2025, that plan for abortion is the same plan that I hear from Republican state legislators across the country and Republicans running for Congress. And so I think we can do a lot better. It's really important to read Project 2025, Democrat or Republican, because it mirrors the Trump agenda that he was trying to push towards the end of his administration. It also mirrors the agenda of a lot of Republicans running for Congress. And so it's important to know where people stand. I'm glad they put it on paper finally. I'm glad they were specific. I'm starting to hear a lot of candidates actually be less specific now because they're worried that the Project 2025 was unpopular, and so maybe their own platform isn't popular. But I think we can do a lot better than that. I'm going to protect women's reproductive freedom. I'm going to make sure we protect in vitro fertilization when we protect access to contraceptives, because I've got 2 daughters, 2 and 4, and I care a lot about their rights and about their bodily autonomy and their future too. And I don't want them being in a world where their rights are under attack. And so I'm going to look forward to being a champion for reproductive freedom in Congress.
All right, so let's continue on with the conversation regarding reproductive rights in this country. It is certainly a topic that many Americans have expressed interest in, and it is certainly a leading issue in this election. Mr. Anderson, we will start with you. Your position, 1 on abortion and then 2 on Roe v. Wade.
So first and foremost, again, you'll hear my opponents go to the extreme. These are the type of extreme ideologies, the radical liberal type of things that are going to literally, the people in my district don't want. I can tell you that my mom, we look at this from a compassion standpoint. This issue has become so divisive, and it's divided our country time and time again. Look, my mom's sitting right up front. She was 18 years old when she had me. She had my brother 13 months later, and she had my sister 10 years later. My great-grandmother and my grandmother each had them respectively at 18 years old as well. Look, folks, my mom's glad she had me, and I'm glad she had me too. But what's going on right now is the Dobbs decision gave this decision back to the states to make decisions that best fit that state. Virginia has spoken on this. But what you're hearing from my opponent is lies. That's what they do. They're going to continue to lie and fearmonger over this issue. Look, I'll tell you exactly where I'm at. I do not support a federal ban on abortion. Full stop. I support IVF. Full stop. I support over-the-counter contraception. Full stop. These are common sense things, folks. But what they want to do is continue to lie, fearmonger, and spread mistruths. Again, folks, I'm here with common sense ideas, with common sense values for the people in my district, the people that raised me.
I want to piggyback because we still have a little time, so I want to make sure we're absolutely clear. Do you support a woman's right to choose, yes or no?
I support the states to be able to make those decisions that best fits those states.
Do you support a woman's right to choose?
Look, I've answered the question twice now.
Okay.
I've
No,
said
you
it
have not.
twice now, and
have
I've
not
said that
answered the
each state
question.
is going to have to make determinations that best
Answer
fit
the
their
question.
states.
Mr. Anderson, thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Mr. Vindman?
Yeah, look, Derek is dodging. That's as simple as that. He's dodging, he's being dishonest, and frankly, he's also been being dishonorable with his ad hominem attacks. This is simple. To Suhas's point, it's Section 450 where they talk about wanting to ban IVF and abortion and even abortion pills. So this is the plan. This is the MAGA Republican playbook, and Derek is not the one to stand in the way. Derek is going to be a junior officer as a first-term congressman. He's bought and paid for by the people that are financing his campaign. He will not stand up to Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not take kindly to people that try to stand up to him, have an independent mind. He will ban abortion if the bill comes up, no matter what he says. He's not the one to stand up. So look, let's talk about what's in here. This is the elimination of a fundamental right to health care that women have enjoyed for decades. Our daughters, Suhas and I, have less rights than they enjoyed previously to Dobbs. And this is the first step. IVF is next on the chopping block, and so is contraception. And that's why Derek will dodge on this question, because he cannot tell more than half of the voters in this district that he is okay with their rights being taken away, which means not restoring Roe. I will restore Roe. I will make it the law of the land, and I will vote against any abortion ban. And when he talks about returning this decision to the states, what he's talking about is having a politician in the exam room with the woman and her doctor. A politician will decide whether or not you're sick enough, and in case in Georgia, where 2 women died, it cost them their lives. And that is unacceptable for them not to have their health care, for women not to have their health care. That's where I stand.
Mr. Vindman, thank you so much. Mr. Subramaniam?
Yeah, you know, I just think back to last year I met a woman in Ashburn who told me that if she was forced to carry to term, she would die. And so I think about the stance on banning abortion. Some states want no exceptions now, right? Some states are saying no exceptions, even for rape or incest. And so when I hear someone say that we shouldn't take federal action on abortion, I just think of women like her who live in those states, and I think about how this is essentially a tacit acceptance of that policy to not act at the federal level. We cannot just stand by and watch that happen in states like Alabama and states like Oklahoma. In Virginia, I have fought and I've made sure that we can protect a woman's right to choose and reproductive freedom. You know, I fully applaud Mr. Anderson's family, and you know, if that was their choice to have children at that age, and that's great, but that was a choice, right? Women should have the choice. And in the end, I think about that woman in Ashburn, I think about what would happen to her. And another thing that's happening too is they're starting to think about tracking women who try to leave the state too. It's like this surveillance of women that's really draconian and unacceptable in our country. We're better than that, we deserve better than that, and so I will take federal action to protect women's reproductive rights.
Let's change the conversation a bit and move on to guns, and specifically gun violence. Since September 13th, there have been 49 school shootings. Countless lives have been lost as a result. We are only, in many states, just a couple of months into the school year. What will you do to address gun violence, and what will you do to keep schools safe? Mr. Vindman, we'll start with you.
Look, we're sitting here right now at an elementary school. Middle school. Your character counts everywhere all the time. That's what they're teaching their kids here. You know what else they're teaching their kids? How to survive. They're teaching their kids how to react in the case of a school shooter. I have a middle schooler as well. They've had 2 drills so far this year. That is unacceptable. To have our kids learning how to survive instead of reading math, science, I mean, it's outrageous. My son went to high school at Hilton High School here in Prince William County, and they actually had a lockdown because somebody brought a gun and it went off. And your mind goes to where every parent's mind goes at that time. Do I get down there? What's going on? Fortunately, it was not an active shooter situation, but that is the reality that we find ourselves in. And I say this as a responsible gun owner. I spent 25 years in the Army. I've fired everything from a pistol to a cannon. So, you know, we can find a middle ground. We don't have to be beholden to NRA and special interests that will crucify you if you say anything about guns. There are provisions that 87% of the country supports, like red flag laws, enforcing red flag laws, like making sure that we have mental health care for people that need it, that we have safe storage requirements, that we close the gun show loophole. Let's pass this. Let's, you know, for a second, think about our kids when we're voting for these laws instead of those folks that are putting money in our campaign accounts.
Mr. Anderson, you're up next.
Look, first and foremost, folks, let's talk about the fact that these shootings have happened. Let's be quite honest. My heart goes out to those family members, truly do. It's horrific what had happened. But what we really need to talk about is the fact that we shouldn't be going after individuals that are law-abiding citizens and going after their weapons. We need to be going after individuals that are criminals, individuals that have severe mental illnesses. Look, if we see what's happened over the last few weeks, specifically in the school shooting down in Georgia, and some of the other events, we've known a few things. One, that the FBI knew about it. They knew about the individual and they had mental illnesses beforehand. We also know the fact that, they knew about this. What we really need to start looking at, folks, is the mental health aspect of this. Look, as someone who's served overseas multiple times, I can tell you in our veterans community, I've had buddies of mine, specifically a buddy from Northern Virginia I went to college with who came home and his twin brother found him dead. Why? Because the resources weren't there for mental health. So we talk about these things. We talk about making sure that folks are getting the help that they need. Look, we're not going to solve this problem from taking guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. We do it from taking it away from criminals. And let me tell you a few things. The Democrats, especially in the House of Representatives, they're the ones that have voted against providing mental health for not only our service members, but for civilians. They're the same folks that have voted against enhancing penalties for individuals that have used weapons in criminal activity, i.e., the armed burglary and burglary are the same exact penalty. They're the same folks that have wanted to defund our police, to make sure that our SROs aren't in our schools to provide safety. And look, as someone who went to school in the district, I know for a fact my SRO was awesome. I looked up to my SRO. So again, folks, we need to have common sense solutions to these problems and making sure we get mental health, make sure we are deterring individuals from using weapons.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Suhas?
Yeah, my girls go to preschool and they have bulletproof doors and windows, and it's like Fort Knox in their preschool now, and we even have armed security throughout the day. And that's just the reality that parents face when they send their kids to school. When the first day of school, we were so excited to send them to school. They were so happy. And then we got home, we saw on TV the news about the shooting in Atlanta. My wife just turned to me and just said, not again, not again, right? It's happening again. And I just think about, the work that I've done in the General Assembly. I've worked across the aisle on this issue. I've tried to get friends, Republicans and Democrats to work together. I've even, been open to talking to the gun lobby if they had feedback on my bills. And I even passed the bill with Republican support. I did other things like expanding background checks, safe storage, which was a bipartisan bill, even banning certain attachments and bump stocks. That was a Republican bill that the governor signed. And so I've worked across the aisle on this issue, but in the end, I would think that we need to do more evidence-based, common sense gun violence prevention measures. As a firefighter EMT, I responded to calls where people, tried to kill themselves, and if they tried to use, any other means besides a gun, we could sometimes save them. But when they use a gun, we could never save them because it's too late by that point. And so I tried to pass a bill that said, let's have a 5-day waiting period from when you try to purchase the gun to when you actually receive the gun. It's kind of like a cooling off period. And that was vetoed by the governor, and Republicans opposed that every step of the way. And that was just common sense. It's been shown that 12 to 15% is how much it would reduce homicides and suicide deaths in states that have passed that kind of legislation. And there's more common sense things that we can do, but I'm concerned about the impact the gun lobby is having on our politics, and I hope that we can make this a bipartisan issue, but right now, unfortunately, it's not. I think the only way to solve the issue is to elect Democrats.
Sir, thank you for your response there. On the issue of gun violence and policing, statistics show that African Americans and other people of color are stopped more often by police officers and are more likely to have negative experiences. Will you vote to support the George Floyd Policing Act, and do you believe that having a national standard that defines police brutality will help eliminate those negative interactions? Mr. Vindman, we'll start with you.
Look, I'm the only one on the stage that's actually been a prosecutor. I prosecuted court cases in federal court. I prosecuted sexual assault cases, fraud cases, drug cases, investigated murder cases. So when I approach this topic, I approach it from the aspect of somebody that strongly believes in rule of law. I work with law enforcement. I know that they have a tough job. They have a dangerous job. But I also know that there are communities out there that don't feel safe with law enforcement. And so we do need to make sure that law enforcement, with the understanding of how difficult that job is, treats communities, including minority communities, with dignity and respect. So I would pass the George Floyd Act. And, you know, part of this is an issue of representation. We have concerted efforts by MAGA extremists that want to eliminate the voices of minorities, the voices of black people and brown people in government. They want to take away their right to vote. And this means that, you know, they have less representation, they have less ability to impact the leadership. And so when I approach this issue, I approach it from the perspective of somebody that's served in law enforcement, that's been a prosecutor, and that we need to protect our communities. And let me just say for 30 seconds, because going back to the previous question, look, having kids changes your perspective on the issue of gun violence. And so we have to be very sober and serious about this issue, and we need to make sure that we keep our kids safe. Children are our future. I don't understand why we would be in this job if we were not protecting our kids.
Mr. Vindman, thank you so much. Mr. Anderson?
Look, we want to make sure that our communities are safe and our law enforcement are getting the tools that they need to make sure that our communities are safe. I've read portions of this piece of legislation specifically, and I do have some issues with it. For instance, I talk a lot with our local law enforcement, especially our sheriffs and our chiefs of police within the area. And one of the things that I find quite often is they don't have the things that they need necessarily to always do their job, right? And that's no fault of anybody but the fact that sometimes those things are too expensive, right? So their board of supervisors can't pay for them or what have you. But if you look at this legislation and some of the things that are in it, for instance, one of the things that it does is it prevents any sort of military equipment to be given over to our law enforcement. And I mentioned that one specifically because, look, there's certain things that our law enforcement community, our sheriff's offices aren't able to acquire. For instance, a great example, when I was in the Army, we had military working dogs. They were able to sniff out bombs, drugs, things of that nature, right? By this legislation, you can't do that, right? So law enforcement, where we have a retired military working dog that could otherwise be used and provide an actual asset to our sheriff's office and local law enforcement, it doesn't allow that. In fact, for instance, body cams. I was just in Culpeper the other day. Culpeper Sheriff's Office were able to get a federal grant for body cams inside the jail. That's great, right? It provides safety for not only the people that are incarcerated there, but also our law enforcement. Again, these are the type of things that our law enforcement needs, but might not be able to get under legislation like this. But again, I'm all about having common sense. I think one of the biggest things we need to do is come together as a community. I've seen this throughout our district time and time again, especially with our sheriffs and local chiefs of police. I applaud them very much for being very integrated into our community, knowing what's going on in our community, and being for everyone in their community.
Mr. Anderson, thank you so much. Mr. Suhas?
Yeah, thank you. One of my first cases as an attorney, I was actually in law school. I was representing a man who had been convicted of murder, and he was in prison for 20 years, and he swore he didn't commit the crime. And we actually went and we found the person who accused him of the crime, and he recanted. And he said, well, the police officer actually threatened to put me in jail if I didn't point him out as the criminal. And I, at the time, didn't think that it was him, wasn't sure. At first, I thought it was him, and then I wanted to recant, but I was told not to. Law enforcement, policing is a really hard job. I'll start with that. I mean, it's a dangerous profession. I've actually passed and put forward legislation to increase police pay and support that profession. We need to attract more people to that profession because right now they're losing people. But we also can't ignore the abuses. Just like in every profession, there's some bad actors, but there needs to be some sort of accountability. Otherwise, there's going to be more abuses. And so that's why I think we need to have some common sense legislation like that to make sure that when there are abuses, there's a process in place. And it's not just law enforcement policing itself. There's actually people outside the law enforcement community that can also weigh in and make sure that there's real accountability. And I've seen it firsthand. And again, I know how important the job is. I know how hard it is. But at the same time, we have to make sure we address the abuses.
Sir, thank you so much for your response to that Our next question deals with the U.S. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court provided a ruling that allows jurisdictions to criminalize homeless individuals. What types of policies or legislation would you support to reduce and work towards eliminating homelessness if elected? Mr. Anderson, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, look, I've had family members of mine that have been homeless. I have. It's absolutely horrendous, and I think one of the biggest communities that are affected by this quite often is our veterans community. It's discouraging to see someone who goes and serves their country overseas in Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever it may have been, and come home and be homeless. One of the things that's truly disheartening when we see what's going on with our border right now, we see individuals that are coming over our border illegally right now, and we're seeing them get credit cards, cell phones, and things of that nature, when again, as you mentioned, we have our own United States citizens that are homeless, our veterans that are homeless. So I think coming up with some sort of common sense solutions, some legislation that not only addresses it, but it comes back to also where we're getting funding from. If the current administration wants to continue to fund illegal immigrants that are in our country, we should be not doing that. We should be making sure that that funding is going to making sure that not only are we having our homeless get off the street, but making sure we have addiction centers for them to be able to get off, because that's another oftentimes where folks get to that point, and that's what's happened in my family before. So again, look, these guys are talking about a lot of solutions and a lot of problems that are going on, but you don't see a lot of solutions to them, right? You don't see a lot of solutions to this immigration problem and whether or not we should be giving free stuff to people when in fact we have individuals here in the United States that don't have those things.
Mr. Vindman.
Look, if we are concerned about homeless veterans, then why is Project 2025, again, this playbook, cutting veterans' benefits? I don't get it. That is what the extremist wing of the Republican Party is doing. So let us actually focus on these issues. There are lots of homeless vets. There are vets, there are plenty of people that have mental health, I think, issues. One of the things we have to recognize is how significant the percentage of people that are homeless are with mental health issues. And so part of what we need to do is we need to address this mental health issue. We need to make sure that these people are not out there in encampments, and that they have some basic level of support. And again, if we're talking about cutting veterans' benefits, that is not helping our homelessness issue.
Mr. Subramaniam.
We have a housing crisis right now in Northern Virginia. A lot of the teachers, when we think of homelessness, I know there's people with mental health issues who, maybe don't have the economic means to buy a home. But we're also in Northern Virginia talking about teachers, firefighters, people who work in our community who can't afford to live here anymore, right? And so in my community, our local schools, actually the teachers commute from West Virginia because they can't afford to live in Virginia now. Think about that hour there and back, how hard it is to be a teacher in the first place, add on 2 hours of commuting. And so, there's a lot we need to do. And I know Democrats have put a lot of solutions forward. I'll just say that as a state senator, we added to the Housing Trust Fund. We wanted to make sure that it was easier for localities to build. We call it workforce housing, but affordable housing generally. We wanted to make sure that when our local governments ran into issues, that they had the authority to overcome some of those issues. But it starts at working every single level of government, from locality, trying to make sure we have the right zoning policies, to the state, to the federal level, trying to get the resources down to those localities to make sure that we address this in a meaningful way. And in Congress, this is going to be one of my priorities, because I know even businesses aren't sure if they want to come here or stay here because they can't afford to hire people. They can't find people, rather, because people can't afford to live here. And so we have to address this head on.
Let's talk about the issue of immigration, because that's a topic that's come up tonight, so I certainly want to give some space for that. I think this will be our final question as we're getting close to our time to dismiss here. We keep hearing that the immigration system is broken. So what specifically would you do to help fix the problem in the system, and what is your position on immigration on our southern border? Mr. Vindman, we'll start with you.
Sure, look, I approach this issue as a refugee and an immigrant myself. My family fled the Soviet Union. We had less than $800 in our pocket, and we had each other in the American dream. and now we are living that dream. And I want to make sure that we provide that opportunity to all Americans. But I also look at this issue from a prosecutor. I'm a strong believer in rule of law, and from a national security perspective, I spent 25 years in the Army. I spent time at the White House. We need to approach this issue not with just talking points and talk about, you know, people getting free stuff and scare tactics. We have to talk about it in the context of we have a national security issue. We need to defend our border as a matter of sovereignty from land, sea, and air. This idea of building a border wall doesn't make sense in many different areas. We need intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. We need to be smart about these things. We need to make sure we defend our sea borders. So let's not just talk about, let's not have talking points about this issue. Let's have real dialogue. And frankly, there was a plan put forward. There was a plan put forward in the spring. It was one of the strongest bills on this topic in decades. And it was shot down by the nominee of Mr. Anderson's party, purely for political gain. And so we need sober, experienced experts that are putting the interests of the American people forward rather than politics and talking points.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I want to be very clear here. You heard a lot of words there. Look, Mr. Vindman, you have Gani Vindman down here. He's focused on his past. How many times have you heard about him talking about Donald Trump? He has a gripe with Donald Trump, and that's the only reason why he's running. Not to represent the people in the 7th District, not the future of the people in the 7th District. Look, I'll tell you, I was just down at the border. I can tell you, the law enforcement down at the border right now, when you walk down it, you can see the Obama-era wall. Obama built some wall. You had President Trump's wall, and then it stops. When I asked the law enforcement officer right there, I said, what is that? He goes, well, that's Joe Biden's wall. We have people coming in droves of millions upon millions, folks, and it is affecting us here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Right now, on average, we're seeing about 5 people overdose a day on fentanyl here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Why? Because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, in the first 100 days of their administration, they reversed and or implemented 90-plus policies that got us to where we're at right now. And you hear my opponent talk about this legislation that was put forward. Do you know what that legislation did? It codified 75,000 people coming into this country illegally monthly. That's what it did. If we want to talk about the issues that we're facing at the border, let's talk about the national security issues and the fact that 2 illegal immigrants of Jordanian descent attempted to breach the front gates of Marine Corps Quantico. This is a national security issue, and those 2 individuals were released on bail. This is what we're facing here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, folks. And my opponent talks about, hey, he does or does not care. I don't know, because he took the issue off of his website. The border is a real issue, folks. So if we want to talk about solutions, we need to make sure we build a wall. Even Kamala Harris and Joe Biden agree with building the wall now. We want to make sure we get end, catch, and release. We need to make sure the Remain in Mexico policy goes into place. We need to make sure we're funding ICE and DHS. I can tell you, as someone who was on the border watching it, I saw 1 DHS vehicle the entire day that I was there. This is a real problem. It's affecting us here in the Commonwealth. It's affecting us here in the 7th Congressional District, and we have to fix it.
Mr. Subramaniam.
Yeah, I'll just say for the people in the back one more time, Republicans had a chance to address border security, and they chose not to, so they could make this a political issue in this election. And so they were not serious about actually securing the border. They just wanted to make it an issue in this election. And so if you were actually thinking that this was a real issue that was really hurting people, then you would actually pass the bill that Republicans in the US Senate supported and Democrats, and they worked together in a bipartisan way to pass some of the most historically strong border legislation we've had in a long time. I would support that bill. I would also support border security, but I would also, let's talk about what's actually happening in this area. We have a lot of legal immigrants who've come here, and there's not much being done for them. There's some people who are waiting 10, 15 years to get their citizenship on H-1B visas, to get those green card appointments. I hear from them every day, all the time in my Senate office, my state Senate office, and so I want to do something for them as well. But if you wanted to fund ICE, if you wanted to fund DHS, pass the bill in the US Senate that Republicans helped write. This is the type of governing that's happening in the US Congress right now, in the US House, is that Mike Johnson, the Speaker, is held message by his own party, by the extreme right wing of his own party, and by his presidential nominee. The reason why Mr. Vindman's talking about Donald Trump is because he's on the ballot, and his ideas are on the ballot in November. And so that's why he's bringing him up. It's not anything to do with him. It's what's going to happen if he gets elected. What's going to happen if Republicans keep control of the House of Representatives. We can do so much better. So yeah, let's address border security. Let's address the legal immigrants. Let's make sure we do comprehensive immigration reform in this country. It's going to take bipartisan support, I think, to do it sustainably and long term. But right now, I only see Democrats being serious about trying to solve the problem.
Mr. Anderson, I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond because the bill was a bipartisan bill. There was Republican and Democratic support, but then that bill did not move forward. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to what's been put on the table.
Yeah, they created this problem. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, as President and Vice President of the United States of America, can fix this problem right now. Right now. They have every opportunity to do that. Just like President Trump had his policies, just like President Biden and Kamala Harris reversed or implemented 90-plus policies that got us to where we're at right now. So you want to talk about party politics, this is party politics right now, where the sitting president and sitting vice president talk about all the things that they want to change in our country, whether it's national security, whether it's immigration, whether it's our foreign policy and our enemies being emboldened, whether it's the economy. They can fix it now, folks, and they have chosen not to.
Mr. Anderson, thank you. Mr. Vindman, we'll give you 30 seconds to respond, sir.
Look, Derek has not been a White House attorney, so he doesn't know that actually you can't fix it. I worked on executive orders in the White House on the National Security
Mr. Vindman, I apologize. Guys, we've been doing so well. We're almost there. I just ask that you please continue to be respectful, all right? Thank you, guys.
The simple fact of the matter is that what he said is not true. I've worked on executive orders in the White House. They don't have the power of law. What was proposed in the spring was a law that would have fixed the problem permanently. So what he's saying is not true. Be quiet, I'm talking.
That's one of your constituents. So
Yeah.
I'm not rude.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the advice. In any case,
Hey, guys, we're doing well. Stay with me, stay strong, okay? I understand that these are issues that you are passionate about. We are doing our best to make sure that you guys get the answers. Whether or not you agree, remember we're all here as one community. Let's be respectful of each other, regardless of where they stand on the issues, okay? All right, thank you.
Look, I'll just take 10 seconds, and I apologize that the Army colonel came out of me. And so, look, executive orders don't have the power of law. There was a law proposed. It was shot down purely for political reasons, and that's the fact of the matter.
Mr. Vindman, thank you so much. We have now entered the section of closing arguments and closing statements from our candidates. We will begin with Mr. Vindman.
Look, you've heard a lot of name calling from my rival there, but what we need in this district is we need sober, experienced expertise. We don't need, we need a level of maturity to be a member of Congress, and frankly, we need decorum. Ultimately, we have to work together in order to get the job done. I spent 25 years in the Army. I worked with people from all walks of life. I was mission focused. That is the mindset that I bring to the work that I do and the work that I will do in the White House. Derek has dodged every question of any substance. He's talked a lot, but has said really nothing. Look, I'm a husband and father. I've raised 2 kids in this district. I am very passionate, I think you can tell, about a number of topics when it comes to safe, high-quality public schools, when it comes to protecting rights, women's rights. I have a 14-year-old daughter. I have nieces of that age. I am passionate because I spent 25 years of my life defending Americans' rights and freedoms, and they're under attack. I have a significant problem with Project 2025, which is the manifesto for the next administration, the next Republican administration. Whether it's Project 2025 or Plan 47, it's the same thing. It's a radical extremist agenda that will take away Americans' fundamental rights and freedoms. It will reduce Social Security and Medicare. It will take away overtime, and it will further restrict access to reproductive health care, IVF. And so look, the stakes in this election couldn't be higher. I'm glad we're doing this. This is now the second in a series of 4 of these events where we have discourse, democratic discourse. We need to continue, and by the time we're through, in 49 days, the American people, the people in this district will
Thank you
speak.
so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
Good evening, folks. Thank you again for having me tonight. Look, I'm a guy from Spotsylvania County. My mom is sitting right up front. My family is all throughout this district. I'm a guy that was raised in this district, went to school in this district, was fortunate enough to get an ROTC scholarship from Virginia Tech and be the first person in my family to graduate from college, go into the Army and do amazing things for my country, serve in both Iraq and Afghanistan. I have been able to live the American dream as a kid from Spotsylvania County. Folks, we heard a lot of topics up here, but one of the things we did not talk about, because I think it's important, is the economy. We talked a lot of different issues up here, but we didn't talk about the fact that the current administration is in charge and can fix these problems now. Here in the Commonwealth, it's costing the average family $1,100 more a month just to live. The cost of goods are up 21%. About 35% of people in the Commonwealth are living paycheck to paycheck. The economy is really hitting us, and I know it because my family, my friends, the people I've grown up with my entire life tell me about it every single day. My mom calls me and FaceTimes me from the grocery store every single time she goes in there to tell me how much eggs and chicken and everything else are. So I find interesting that as my opponent read from a book all night long, I'm talking about real problems, real solutions. I'm talking about my opponent and the fact that his entire campaign is a revenge tour against Donald Trump. And you can smirk at me all you want, but that is the truth. That is the truth. Trying to rectify the failed policies of the Biden-Harris administration, that's what you're trying to do. I'm focused on the people in the 7th District's future. The people in my district where I grew up and I want to represent. So I can tell you, it would not only be an honor to be the next congressman in Virginia's 7th Congressional District, but to be able to represent the people that raised me. Thank you all so very much.
Mr. Anderson, thank you so much. Mr. Subramaniam?
Thank you so much for having us here today. Thank you to Mr. Vimmen and Mr. Anderson for being here as well. My opponent looks like he couldn't be here tonight, but I'll just say that I appreciate the conversation because, 40 years ago plus, my parents came over here and they wanted to pursue the American dream, and they had those opportunities. And over those 40 years, we've been able to do amazing things as a family. And I don't think my mom ever thought that her son could ever run for U.S. Congress. A guy named Suhas Subramaniam in the Congress seemed unthinkable when she first got here, but she did it. And so when I look back at the last 40 years, we have come so far as a country, and we've done so much, and I'm so optimistic for the future, but there's a lot more to do, and I'm ready to do that. As a state senator and a state member of the General Assembly, I've worked hard to cut costs, make sure that we address safety in our community, make sure that we fund education. We didn't talk much about education tonight, but that's a big priority of mine because I want to make sure that their future is secure. I want to make sure that what we leave behind for them is a brighter future and an economy that's great, an environment that's great, education that's great, because they're worth it. And they're worth the fights. And the last thing I'll say is I think the best solutions moving forward are going to be ones where we're working together across the aisle. But one of the first things I did as a state senator and a state delegate was to start the Commonwealth Caucus, a bipartisan caucus with Democrats and Republicans. And we just got together and we worked on the hard issues. We talked and we just built that camaraderie that's missing sometimes. I see neighbors fighting now. I see so many ways to divide us, but I hope that we can unite in the end because that's what's going to be best for our country. So thank you all so much for being here. I look forward to working together, and I look forward to being your champion if I'm elected for the 10th Congressional District.
Ladies and gentlemen, your candidates for Virginia's 7th and 10th Congressional District. Let's give them all a round of applause.
Thank you all.
We want to thank you all for coming tonight. We appreciate you being here. We have some final words. We want to thank you guys were a great audience, all things considered. All things considered, nice job, guys. Thank you so much. Whatever you do, make sure you guys go out and vote. We have our feedback, our Coalition for Action feedback for Virginia's 7th and 10th Congressional District. The feedback, all right, the QR code is out front where you can scan and then leave comments. We hope that you will. We all hope that you all get home safely as well. Have a great night, okay? Thank you. Okay.
Please give us the feedback. We apologize for starting a little late, but give us some grace on that. But we'd like to let you to know how we can improve. So please provide your feedback to us. Just scan the QR code. Thank you.